What if the person you're afraid of becoming is the person you were meant to be all along? Think about that for a moment. What if the fear you feel is not a warning sign, but a doorway? What if the discomfort in your chest, the hesitation in your mind, the voice that says don't go too far is not protecting you, but limiting you? Most people believe they are afraid of failure. They say they fear embarrassment, rejection, losing, but that's not the real fear. The real fear is power. The real fear is responsibility. The real fear is becoming someone who can no longer hide behind excuses. Because the moment you step into your full potential, your life changes. Your relationships change. Your habits change. Your standards rise. And when your standards rise, everything that does not match them must fall away. That is terrifying. You see, staying small feels safe. When you play small, nobody expects too much from you. Nobody feels threatened by you. You can blend in. You can complain. You can delay. You can say, I'm trying, without ever truly committing. And the world will comfort you. It will tell you it's okay. It will tell you to relax. It will tell you not to be too serious. But deep inside, something starts to rot. It is your self-respect. Every time you choose comfort over growth, your mind remembers. Every time you avoid discipline, your subconscious records it. You begin to see yourself as someone who talks more than acts, someone who dreams more than executes. And that quiet disappointment becomes heavier than any external failure ever could. That is the real pain. Not losing, not failing, but knowing you could have been more and choosing not to. Why are you afraid of becoming stronger? Why are you afraid of becoming colder, more focused, more disciplined? Because strength demands responsibility. Because focus demands sacrifice. Because discipline demands that you say no to distractions, to toxic people, to late nights, to instant pleasure. And when you say no to the world does not clap for you. It questions you. When you start setting boundaries, people call you selfish. When you stop explaining yourself, people call you arrogant. When you move in silence, people call you distant. But what they are really feeling is discomfort. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Psychology teaches us something powerful. Human beings are wired to seek belonging. We want approval. We want acceptance. We want to feel safe in the tribe. And becoming powerful threatens that safety. Because power separates you. Power makes you different. Power makes you stand alone at times. And the mind hates standing alone. So it creates fear. It whispers, don't change too much. It says, what if they don't like you anymore? It asks, what if you fail after all that effort? But beneath those questions is a deeper one. Who will you become if you actually succeed? Because success changes identity. And identity change is one of the most uncomfortable psychological experiences a human can face. You're not just upgrading your habits. You are shedding an old version of yourself. And the old version will fight to survive. It will tell you to scroll instead of work, to sleep instead of train, to talk instead of build. It will remind you of your past mistakes. It will try to convince you that you are not that person, not the disciplined one, not the powerful one, not the focused one. But what if you are? What if the reason that stronger version of you feels dark is because it refuses weakness? What if it feels cold because it does not tolerate excuses? What if it feels intense because it is obsessed with growth? You are not afraid of becoming a monster. You are afraid of becoming unstoppable. And here is the truth. The world does not need another comfortable person. It does not need another average mind seeking approval. It needs individuals who have the courage to face their own potential. Individuals who can look at their fear and say, you are not a stop sign. You are a signal. If you stay with this message until the very end, you will understand something most people never realize: how to transform that fear into fuel. How to use the very thing that scares you as proof that you're moving in the right direction. Because the version of you that scares you is not your enemy. It is your evolution. And the only question left is this: will you continue protecting your comfort, or will you finally protect your potential? If that stronger version of you is your evolution, then the next step is simple to understand, but hard to accept. You must stop running from the traits that make you powerful. Some qualities feel dangerous when you first develop them. They feel sharp. uncomfortable, almost wrong, but only because you were taught to stay soft in a world that respects strength. Saying no without guilt feels harsh at first. You feel selfish. You feel rude. But every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to your future. And your mind knows it. That is why resentment builds. That is why frustration grows. You are betraying your own priorities. Walking away without explaining yourself feels cold. You want to defend your decision. You want to be understood. But powerful people understand something simple. Not everyone deserves access to their energy. Not everyone deserves a detailed explanation. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. When you stop seeking approval, something strange happens. At first, you feel alone. You feel exposed, because validation used to be your emotional fuel. A compliment could lift your day. Criticism could destroy it. But the moment you stop depending on outside opinions, your emotional stability increases. You become steady, hard to shake, hard to manipulate. That stability is power. Most people are controlled by reactions. They react to comments. They react to gossip. They react to disrespect. But when you choose not to react, you take back control. You choose strategy over emotion. You choose long-term results over short-term satisfaction. And that feels dark to people who live emotionally. Thinking strategically instead of emotionally changes everything. You stop asking, "How do I feel right now?" and start asking, "What leads to the best outcome?" You delay pleasure. You plan your moves. You observe more than you speak. You become aware of patterns in people's behavior. You learn when to engage and when to withdraw. This is not evil. This is awareness. Kindness without boundaries is weakness. But kindness with boundaries is strength. You can be respectful without being naive. You can be calm without being passive. You can be patient without being a victim. The world respects clarity. When your words match your actions, people notice. When your no means no, people adjust. When your time becomes valuable, people treat it that way. But that only happens when you treat it that way first. Discipline is another trait that feels dark. It kills comfort. It kills laziness. It forces you to wake up when you don't feel like it, to work when you don't feel motivated, to stay focused when distractions are screaming your name. Discipline does not care about your mood, and that is why it builds unbreakable confidence. Confidence does not come from positive thinking. It comes from kept promises. Every time you do what you said you would do, your brain rewires itself. It starts to trust you. And when you trust yourself, fear loses power. Focus feels cold because it ignores noise. You stop chasing every opportunity. You stop responding to every message. You stop trying to impress everyone. You pick one direction and commit. That level of commitment scares people who are addicted to options. But power is built in depth, not in distraction. There's also emotional detachment. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop being controlled. You observe your feelings without being ruled by them. Someone insults you. You analyze instead of exploding. Someone doubts you. You smile instead of arguing. You understand that energy is limited and you refuse to waste it. When you combine boundaries, discipline, focus, and emotional control, something shifts inside you. You no longer feel desperate. You no longer feel reactive. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself constantly. You become untouchable, not because you are feared, but because you are grounded, stable, certain. And that certainty is what most people lack. The traits you once avoided, the firmness, the silence, the strategic thinking become your shield. They protect your time. They protect your goals. They protect your peace. You do not need to become cruel. You do not need to become heartless. You need to become precise. Clear about who you are. Clear about what you want. Clear about what you will no longer tolerate. That clarity will make some people uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. Because the moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you finally start respecting yourself. And when you respect yourself, the world has no choice but to adjust. When the world adjusts to your self-respect, something deeper happens. You adjust to yourself. You stop negotiating with your standards. You stop lowering your vision to make others comfortable. You stop apologizing for ambition. And in that moment, fear begins to disappear. Not because life becomes easier, but because your identity becomes stronger. Identity is everything. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you will always leave room to quit. If you see yourself as someone who is working on it, you will always accept delay. But when you decide, truly decide, this is who I am now, your behavior aligns automatically. A disciplined person does not debate waking up early. That is just who they are. A focused person does not argue with distractions. That is beneath them. A strong person does not crumble under criticism. That is expected. The shift is simple but powerful. Stop asking, "What should I do?" and start declaring, "This is who I am." When you define yourself clearly, doubt loses oxygen. Doubt survives in confusion. It grows in uncertainty, but clarity suffocates it. You're no longer a person trying to build discipline. You're disciplined. You're no longer someone hoping to gain respect. You're respectable. You're no longer someone afraid of standing alone. You're comfortable in your own presence. That comfort is silent power. Strong people are rarely loud. They do not need to announce their moves. They do not need constant validation. They move with purpose. Every action is intentional. Every word is measured. They understand that energy is currency, and they spend it wisely. You can feel it when someone is grounded. Their presence is calm. Their eyes are steady. They do not chase attention. They attract it without trying. Why? Because certainty is magnetic. When you become certain about your path, you stop comparing yourself. Comparison is a sign of insecurity. It means you are still looking sideways for approval. But once your direction is clear, you look forward. Always forward. You begin to operate differently. You plan long-term. You think in months and years, not in hours and days. Temporary discomfort no longer scares you because you understand the reward. You are willing to sacrifice now for power later. And this is where most people fall apart. That is beneath them. A strong person does not crumble under criticism. That is expected. The shift is simple but powerful. Stop asking, "What should I do?" and start declaring, "This is who I am." When you define yourself clearly, doubt loses oxygen. Doubt survives in confusion. It grows in uncertainty, but clarity suffocates it. You are no longer a person trying to build discipline. You're disciplined. You're no longer someone hoping to gain respect. You are respectable. You're no longer someone afraid of standing alone. You're comfortable in your own presence. That comfort is silent power. Strong people are rarely loud. They do not need to announce their moves. They do not need constant validation. They move with purpose. Every action is intentional. Every word is measured. They understand that energy is currency, and they spend it wisely. You can feel it when someone is grounded. Their presence is calm. Their eyes are steady. They do not chase attention. They attract it without trying. Why? Because certainty is magnetic. When you become certain about your path, you stop comparing yourself. Comparison is a sign of insecurity. It means you are still looking sideways for approval. But once your direction is clear, you look forward. Always forward. You begin to operate differently. You plan long-term. You think in months and years, not in hours and days. Temporary discomfort no longer scares you because you understand the reward. You are willing to sacrifice now for power later. And this is where most people fall apart. They want the reward without the sacrifice. They want respect without consistency. They want confidence without discipline. But life does not work that way. Respect is earned in silence. Confidence is built in repetition. Power is created in private. When you embrace that truth, you stop searching for shortcuts. You stop waiting for motivation. You build systems. You build routines. You build habits that operate even when your emotions are unstable. That is what makes you untouchable. Not arrogance, not aggression. Control, emotional control, time control, attention control. When someone tries to provoke you, you remain calm. When a setback happens, you adjust instead of collapsing. When an opportunity appears, you evaluate instead of rushing. Your mind becomes strategic. Your actions become deliberate. And slowly, the person you once feared becomes familiar. The disciplined version of you feels natural. The focused version of you feels normal. The detached version of you feels peaceful. You realize that what once seemed dark was simply mature. What once felt cold was simply controlled. You did not become less human. You became less reactive. And that is the difference between being powerful and being average. Average people are controlled by circumstances. Powerful people control their response. Average people chase comfort. Powerful people chase growth. Average people seek approval. Powerful people seek alignment with their standards. The world does not fear kind people. It does not fear friendly people. It fears controlled people. Because controlled people cannot be manipulated. They cannot be pressured into decisions. They cannot be easily shaken. When you are controlled, you are free. Free from emotional chaos. Free from peer pressure. Free from the need to prove yourself constantly. And at that point, something powerful happens. The fear that once held you back becomes proof of your transformation. The discomfort that once made you hesitate becomes a reminder that you are evolving. You finally understand that becoming the person you were afraid to become was never about darkness. It was about strength. It was about clarity. It was about stepping into a version of yourself that refuses to live small. The only thing that ever stood in your way was your attachment to comfort. Now imagine living without that attachment. Imagine waking up with purpose, moving with precision, speaking with certainty. Imagine looking at challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to sharpen your edge. That is the person you were afraid of. And now, that person is you.